3, 2, 1. Sharon Winfield, you are the COO of Avery Healthcare. Welcome to the Care Home Show.
Thank you very much, Simon. Nice to be here.
So it's good to have you on the show. I've been looking forward to creating a podcast with you for a while. I know we mentioned it a while back, so it's good to have the opportunity to be recording today. Tell me a little bit about Avery Healthcare and how the business was established. So I guess kind of the genesis of the business and its story, if you like.
Yeah, the business was established in 2005 by the two founders, John Strawbridge and Ian Matthews. They have around 55 years experience in the sector. John actually developed care homes many years ago and started, I believe, working for his sister on a weekend, who was a care home manager, and thought, I can do this.
Okay.
He's quite an entrepreneur. And then went out and sought investors. He was familiar with Ian Matthews through networking, interestingly. Ian was worked at Westminster, which is obviously now Barchester, as a director there. So he had the great operating experience that was required to get the business up and running. They were lucky enough to get private equity, and started the business in 2005, 2006. So that was the basis of Avery.
Got you. Perfect, thank you. And what were John and Ian looking to achieve when they set out for the business? Because I can imagine with that kind of the operational track record and the kind of entrepreneurial mindset and things, they will have had like a vision of what they wanted to do in the future. What was that? What were they looking to achieve when they established the business?
Yeah, they certainly did have a vision that's obviously taken us through many years of operating successfully. Care with the difference, and that was obviously supported by the state-of-the-art buildings. That was the key thing, really. It was at a time in the sector that the local authorities were quickly closing down all of their local authority-run homes. And in the days gone by, people who couldn't afford to go into private care homes didn't. They went into purely funded care homes, and the smaller private care homes were just that, quite small. As we saw the closure of the local authority homes, that was the opportunity for providers to come into the sector and operate a model that could support both private and funded residents. And so ultimately that business got established through their ability to recognise what quality was, particularly with Ian, and through his operating at a director level with Westminster, but then through John, through his ability to build state-of-the-art buildings. So that was their vision. It was about recruiting the right people and looking at opportunities to obviously look at the growth of the organisation, the investment, who would invest, and they came into the sector in a great time around that period, 2005, and obviously have been successful to date.
Indeed, they have. And obviously the business has grown quite considerably over the years. Can you explain a little bit about what that growth trajectory looks like over the years?
Well, yes, I've been very much a part of that, and it's been quite a pace. I don't think we ever go through a period where it's just steady. We're just not a steady company. We're always looking at what else is there to innovate, and what designs are out there, both in terms of the environment, how can we improve the environment, and how can we offer a better design for the people moving in, particularly around top technology. So in 2006, Avery, through investment, acquired a small group of homes in Darlington and the surrounding areas of North Yorkshire. And that was a group of 4 care homes, and it was a domiciliary company as well. They very quickly, and I'm going to say within 2 months, acquired a group of around 25 homes, which was known as Avery Healthcare. People I feel sure are familiar with Avery Healthcare, good quality care homes, good quality designs. And I would say that probably around 15 of those were operating. They were all new, so they were only just operating, and the rest were still in build. Moving on from that, it was the days when corporate companies were coming into the sector, and they'd gone from smaller providers to larger providers really quickly. Investment was quite easy to get. Avery operated that group and then were acquired by Southern Cross, just through the fact that the offer that Southern Cross made, particularly to the investors, couldn't be refused. And very quickly, the portfolio was reduced from 27 homes to 3 homes. And at that time, it gave Avery the opportunity to start to build and develop their own homes, which they duly did. And then as the years have gone on, we've had some large acquisitions, we've continued to build, and then we currently sit today around 60 operating homes, 4 retirement living, 3 of which were acquisition, 1 of which we built ourselves. And we continue to build, so we've got 4 in build at the minute, and then we've got a lot of land secured for further build. So it's been quite a journey, really. Part of that growth was in 2013, we were at about 34 care homes, and Four Seasons actually bought the mature care homes from that group, which took our portfolio to around 17, which was quite a reduction. A few staff obviously tupied over. That later became known in the Four Seasons brand as Brighter Kind, which was their first private portfolio within that group. Again, that allowed us to look at investment. It allowed us to look at investors. We moved quite quickly into a healthcare REIT investor, which obviously has given us the opportunities to develop the portfolio even further over the years following that. And within them 7 years, it's grown significantly.
So yeah, there's what's interesting is you've had the kind of the growth, and then the exit, and then the growth, and then the exit, and then we've gone through this kind of big growth phase again. So never a dull moment in Avery then, from what I can tell. Never
a dull moment. No, very exciting, challenging, but very exciting. And of course, with acquisitions, it brings a whole lot of challenges with that. So that's been quite an interesting journey, Simon.
I can imagine. I'm sure we'll get into that later. So I'd be interested to know, what was it about Avery that made you want to join?
Well, I didn't really have a choice, so I was acquired. So I was the lady operating the group of care homes in Darlington when Avery first established themselves as a provider in the sector. So I was automatically tupied into the company, and obviously met John and Ian and worked very closely with them as it was the start of their business in 2006.
Got you. That makes sense. Okay, then in which case, what is it that made you want to stay?
Well, it was quite an interesting journey. I always consider my own career when we acquire or we build, and my own experiences of what was exciting, challenging, but what also didn't work well. And I've used that ethos throughout my own career and throughout developing with the group Avery Healthcare. So I was a little bit nervous, I was a little bit apprehensive. My background had been in the public sector before I joined the private sector. I know that I made the right decision by joining the private sector with the private group of homes in Darlington, and I was, I developed that company quite significantly from joining. So a new provider coming in always gives you that worry about the hierarchy, the structure, whether there's going to be a bit of a corporate nature, and there absolutely wasn't. In fact, it was quite the opposite. We very quickly established core values, and one of the core values that we did establish was that we wanted to continue to operate as a family, and we've continued to do that throughout the years, albeit that as we have grown, it's been quite challenging. Now, in 2007, when that group was acquired, along with the Hadrian Group, was acquired by Southern Cross, I was TUPE'd to Southern Cross, where I spent 20 months with a growing corporate organisation. Now, I had some exciting times with Southern Cross. I also had some very challenging times. We tripled the portfolio in the Northeast within 1 year.
Wow.
And that was absolutely massive. You know, there just was not enough hours in the day to cope with the amount of acquisitions that were coming in. And for me, I think one of the real key areas for me to develop Avery with the team was how not to do acquisitions, because you have to have the right capacity to be able to support that. I did stay there for 20 months, and then I decided, when I recognised that there was potential that the business would fail, to get out. I felt that my professionalism was being compromised, that I was quite vulnerable, and I left probably around 6 months before the collapse. It was very, very difficult in terms of the resources. They were trying hard to keep the business going, and the impact of that on essential, particularly maintenance and repairs of the homes, became quite worrying. So I moved out of Southern Cross to work with a very good friend, but actually just as I was in the process of doing that, John Strawbridge rang me and said that we've developed another 2 care homes, we're building many more, would you come back and join the company? It was a very difficult decision. I live in the Northeast. I had 1 child at school age. It meant national travel, being away from home. Did I want to do that? It wasn't an easy decision to make. But working with them for a very short time, I very easily recognised their passion in delivering high quality care with a difference, in beautiful care homes, and more importantly, that the organisation was a family and it was a supportive family structure. So I made the decision to join Avery again, and I'm here today.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a journey in itself, from the TUPE over to Southern Cross back into Avery.
And I mean, a testament to your work, of course, for John to ring you up and say that you're the person that they want to come and take things forward as well. So you obviously did a great job of impressing him in the time that you did work together.
Yes, he did do several journeys up to my hometown. We did meet several times, but yes, I was pleased that I made that decision. But I certainly didn't take it lightly.
Mm. So one of the things that you touched upon there is the values of the organisation. As you know, culture is one of my favourite subjects, so it's definitely something that I'd like to be able to explore with you. So even before you and I became acquainted, one of the things that I've always known about Avery and about the brand is that the culture is really, really strong. And it's managed to keep the culture really, really strong throughout all of the kind of the various different of the phases of the growth and everything like that, which is amazing. But as you know, as many businesses grow, especially multi-site businesses like care home groups, the culture, it might start strong, but that it dilutes over time, because you'll have the kind of the aspirations and the things that the founding team set out to try and achieve, but unfortunately that becomes watered down over a period of time. So how, obviously this is something that you've been instrumental in being involved in, but how have you managed to keep the Avery culture strong whilst you've gone through these various different growth phases?
A really, really good question, Simon. And you are right. It's easy for that culture to dissolve as you grow. And I certainly experienced that in Southern Cross, because when I first TUPE'd over, the portfolio in the Northeast was probably around 100 homes. And then within that year, it went up to 300. And the structure didn't necessarily grow with it.
Sure.
So I think first and foremost, it is, it's really important that you look at that and you establish, when you are growing, what structure you need beside you to do that. And as a team, we did that. We did it together. I think recruiting the right people at the right time is key, because again, with growth, you can, particularly acquisitions, you can never really know until very close to the deadline of taking that group over whether you're going to actually do it. And to build a team and not do that is the fine balance of getting it right. And working on the recruiting the right team at the right time was key for me, absolute key. Particularly when we acquired 29 homes in 6 weeks. And at that stage, we were only a very, very small group, having sold half of the portfolio to Four Seasons. So, it was really important that I established the right team to support that journey. So recruiting the right people with the right expertise was one of the most important aspects, and helping them to understand the culture by investing in them, working alongside them, developing them, allowing them to shine themselves and take some autonomy for the growth of the business, and then just giving mutual respect. It was long hours. You have to be prepared to work them long hours, to invest in them people, and to continue to invest in the understanding that you don't want to change the culture through growth. And people will join and they'll say, well, people talk about the Avery way. What is the Avery way? And it, one of the key things for me is about the induction into the organisation. I'm quite forceful when it comes to that, and regardless of whether there's any risk in the business, people are protected when they come into Avery. They know that they're protected, and so does everybody else, so that they fully understand what the Avery way is. And I'm not going to go into the full details of the Avery way, because I'm not going to give all of the secrets away, but they establish what that is during that protected time.
Mm.
We work together. We don't operate a hierarchy culture. We operate through parallel leadership. We listen to people. We operate with transparency, openness, and mutual respect. I suppose one of the things that we are able to do through the expertise in the organisation that we have within the team is we can make decisions quickly. We don't have to go through all of them tiers to be able to say, yes, let's do it, no, let's not do it. We don't set up meetings for the sake of meetings. We work in a really responsive way, but to deliver in a proactive way, if you understand what I mean. Mm. We recognise that rewarding the teams is critical and part of their development, succession planning, making sure that we can see those that have the ability to provide innovation in different areas, and using that to build the culture and to build the leadership for us to take the company forward.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it speaks true of many other organisations, care and otherwise, that I know that have got really strong culture. It has to be really high on the priority list, if not maybe the highest thing on the priority list, kind of balancing that off obviously against the life experience of the residents and the team. But those two things I think are kind of, they're almost like one and the same, because if you've got a great team and they operate in a way that's consistent with a great culture, the residents are always going to experience great life experience, because that's the kind of the consistent with the core values and the vision of the organisation. So it's no surprise that's the case. So
I think it's just really important to listen to your customers, and everybody within the organisation is a customer. If we didn't take time to listen to those that purchase the service and those that work in the service, then there wouldn't be a culture. And we've got to try and listen to them, but keep that family focus, which is our main cultural value, in order to deliver the expectations of people coming in to live or work in Avery.
So within that then, okay, so when I talk about culture, again, it's one of my favourite subjects. I spend quite a lot of time talking about it. But when I talk about culture, I talk about it being leadership facilitated and team driven, meaning that the leadership team, it's their responsibility to create an environment for their team to be successful in living the culture on a day-by-day basis. So would you agree with that sentiment? And I guess if you do, how has that concept come together within Avery?
Totally agree, Simon. And I think with any company the size, it's important to recognise that there is a plethora of leaders out there, you know, and leaders that are able to lead in lots of different ways. We have a real focus on the people that we employ, recognising their qualities in particularly in leadership and succession planning throughout their career with Avery, and we've got some great examples where even from people who have come in as an apprentice and worked their way through that succession planning to now be a home manager. I think for the senior leaders, it's about them recognising the qualities out there with the teams on what they're able to do in terms of resident satisfaction and work satisfaction, and being able to allow them to evolve and develop, but not only that, but being able to let them embrace their own development and recognise their own development needs. And in order to do that, you know, it's about supporting them, and that will help just continue with that culture. And not one size fits all, it simply doesn't. But there might be other areas where people have excellent leadership skills that we can make a real focus of, and that's something that we always look at every time we meet.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got where you've got a really clear vision and a really, really clear values. I think some people, I've heard people talk about the fact that it almost feels kind of too prescriptive. It feels kind of too direct and things. And I can understand where they're coming from. But a friend of mine, Paul Hainsworth at Envivo, the chief executive there, he talks about freedom in a framework. It's about you've got to set out your stall. You've got to say, okay, so here's what to aim for. Here's what to avoid, just so that people have got that kind of polarity and contrast. But here's an environment in which you can your own kind of your own personality, your own special skills, your own kind of I don't know, you have magic fairy dust, whatever it is, you kind of sprinkle everything that you kind of bring into the table. It's creating an environment for each individual, and everyone, of course, is an individual, and everyone's got something slightly different to bring to the table. So I guess it's about creating that environment and letting people shine by empowering them, giving them the right tools, making sure that they feel valued, and they feel comfortable in being their best self, bringing their best self to work.
Yes, totally agree, and you know, that's motivating in itself. If people have that vision themselves, then they're motivated to come into work and know that they've got opportunities. And you know, if there's a good leader leading that team, then you've got such stability. You know, the figures give you the reality.
Yeah, definitely. Numbers don't lie, eh?
They don't lie.
It's interesting, isn't it, how so again, the obviously speak to a lot of people about culture. One of the interesting things is, I think culture sometimes gets categorized as a kind of broadly like a HR thing, and they'll classify a great culture as, okay, so we've got really, really low employee turnover. Maybe we do our kind of team survey every quarter, and we get kind of great engagement and results. And let's not underplay that. That's fantastic. But there's it's a much bigger picture than that. And the way that I always describe it is, okay, so yeah, if you build a great culture, people, firstly, they won't want to leave because they're never going to get that feeling around how they work elsewhere. If you're then bringing in people that align with that culture, then they're going to want to stick around and stay as well. So firstly, you've got a more stable team. You're spending less money on agency, of course, as well, which is that's going to do the business benefit. But then if you've got a more stable team, you're just by virtue of that fact, you're going to do a better job of looking after your residents because they've just got a better relationship. There's that just over time, just getting to know people. So if you've got a really stable team that knows the residents are going to get a higher standard of care. And then the benefit of that, of course, is that your CQC inspections improve, but then your reputation improves as well, because people are having great life experiences. The people in the communities that the care homes serve, they'll start talking. So, oh, my great aunt Hilda's got to go into a care home. Oh, my mum's in this particular care home. You should go and check it out because it's absolutely fantastic. And it just cascades down throughout the entire organisation. So if you've got really low employee turnover, you're delivering absolutely fantastic care, and your occupancy's higher. Like, those are three of just about the most important metrics there are in the care home world, and that all comes about through having a fantastic culture. So it's interesting. I think some people see culture as being kind of intangible, and it's hard to measure. You know, when your business has a great culture, when all of those kind of key metrics, if you like, you can see them all flying and going in the right direction.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think, as part of our values, it's about innovation, as I've spoke about earlier. And we have lots of different strategies, as many other organisations do. And going from corporate to private, for me, was about how we do that. And my experience going into a large corporate with a massive growth was there was an expectation that any initiatives or strategies that needed to be rolled out would done as a blanket approach. And that potentially is going to set some businesses up to fail. And we do look at every single care home as a separate business. They've all got their own individuality, along with the people that work there. So it's important for me that the team recognise that individuality, particularly around initiatives and how we map them out in each particular service and not just as a whole company, and what support people need in order to lead any initiatives going into the home, because they're all at different stages. They're not all ready to take all of the initiatives on. So I think that's really important that we recognise that. Otherwise, we're not going to embed it properly, and it's just not going to work. And then your culture starts to dissolve. There's too much pressure. We've got too many things coming in at once, and we need to consider how we do that. And it's, for me as well, recruiting the right people with the right expertise to be able to embed any initiatives or strategies that we're putting out there is critical, and for them to recognise that culture and understand that you're not going to achieve that across the group in the first 12 months. It's going to take time in one service, and you're going to do it quite quickly in the other, because again, it's that recognition of the leaders within each individual service that's important on the success of the business.
Just coming back to something that you mentioned earlier around the obviously you've undergone quite significant growth phases, and in those growth phases you've both bought and built care homes in quite often a relatively short period of time. How have you gone about instilling the culture in a brand new care home, and then how have you managed to instill the culture in a care home that you bought? Because it's a very, very different process, and of course comes with very different challenges.
Oh, it certainly does. I think obviously with a new care home, onboarding is absolutely essential. So we have a whole strategic plan around acquisition, and then a separate one for commissioning. I won't go into the details of that because they're quite lengthy, but I think if we say new homes first, again, it's about recruiting the right person. have we got somebody, have we got somebody that has that skill within the company that can then go on to commission another home that they've commissioned already for us. So that all forms part of the commissioning strategy. But we're very clear with the commissioning that we bring the teams on fairly soon after recruitment and long before we actually open the home. And it is about that constant support, leadership, openness, transparency, getting them to understand the values, the vision of the organisation. How do we do that? We do it through lots of ways. So we do it through direct training, we do it through onboarding strategies, we do a lot of team building for the new homes. We get them involved in the fit out so that they're part of the environment. We get them involved in meet and greets with people who are coming to visit the home. And obviously we embed that in at the beginning of taking these people on. We start with the key people. Through the recruitment, we start with the key people, so the heads of departments, so that we get them on first, and then we work it across so that they then develop their teams within the new home to be able to support the values going forward. And that's always worked really well. I mean, I think up to now I've probably built around probably about 50 care, not personally by the way, but in the groups I've worked in, around 50 care homes. And there's been disasters where there's been no strategy on how that's going to work, which has helped me think about how can we do this better. And over the years, it has got better and better and better. And now it's it's for the last sort of 7 years, it's been a whole strategic plan. Acquisition is very, very different. You still have the onboarding, but the fact is that home is operating and it potentially has 90% of the time has a culture that doesn't fit with the architecture of the Avery culture. So changing that culture takes a lot longer. And again, we have a whole strategic plan on how we do that. And we do it in stages. We don't just throw it in there. And again, that's probably one of the things that I learned when developing and acquiring homes at the pace that I did many years ago with another provider. And again, it was about how do we support that manager. It's a very, very nervous time for them. They're worried, and new providers coming in. And them days, it was just you turned upon the door. Thankfully, we've managed to change that slightly. They do get a little bit of notice, not always, but we try and do that where they do get a little bit of notice. And it's, that if they're anxious, frustrated, worried, then the rest of the team are going to be worried. So it's about how we support that. We have a whole team that do the onboarding as part of that. We bring the managers on board by making sure they get a thorough induction, and then we start to embed different strategies as we recognise what stage the homes are at. And I think we've been quite successful. Our retention of managers is exceptional. We have managers that have worked with us from the beginning, and we have acquired managers that have worked with us from takeover.
Sure, got you. Yeah, and again, that's a real strong sign of the strength of the culture. Something that you mentioned earlier around wanting to keep a flat hierarchy, really holding on to those kind of family values, if you like. I can imagine that as the company's grown, the org chart structure will have had to have evolved. And there's always going to have to be more people in a management team with more care homes. So what have you done to try and make sure that you ensure that culture is maintained and developed whilst you've been kind of evolving and growing?
Recruiting the right people. I think that is key, and we don't always get that right. I don't think anybody would always get that right. We need people from that recruitment stage who we know are going to be able to articulate the values of the company, and that they're going to fit into the Avery cultural architecture, because some people don't fit. They think that they're going to fit, and we think they're going to be a great fit, but actually when they come into the organisation, it's actually, this isn't what I thought it was. And we tend to experience that more from the larger corporates, where some leaders have operated by following every single practice that the corporate company tells them to do, they lose their self-awareness around autonomy, and sometimes they just can't get that back. You know, they've had their day mapped out for them, and as long as that ticky box is done at the end of the day, they've achieved what they needed to achieve. And great leaders need autonomy, and the need to be able to have own thoughts around what they would find innovating in their own environment, and they need to be able to exercise that, not to the point where it's going to be a risk to the business, but certainly where they have the power to be able to lead the team through innovation by themselves and not just through the company strategies. So the onboarding, keeping the whole team engaged and motivating through that involvement is absolutely key. Keeping the team small. So your teams can be too big. You've got too many people to manage. You're going to start to dissolve the culture. So keeping them teams small and recognising where you've got good leaders and supporting them to be able to pick up their own team, and, you know, driving that ambition with them rather than at them or for them. That's absolutely key.
Definitely.
And again, just to keep everybody supported so that they remain project and goal focused through that innovation and very importantly, recognition.
Yeah, when people smash it, they need to know that they've done a great job.
Absolutely.
We all need that type of recognition, don't it? It doesn't matter whatever level you're at within any type of organisation and things. It's nice to be appreciated. It's nice to be recognised for hard work and achieving great things.
Yeah, you know, thank you is one of the biggest words that makes people feel valued throughout the world. Spoken in language,
but so effective. Do you? I mean, with any organisation, you mentioned kind of a couple of things that you've alluded to where things haven't necessarily all gone as well as they might do. Invariably, things will go wrong from time to time. What mistakes have you made, either culturally or relevant to the growth of the organisation over the years, where you've had an opportunity to reflect and think, well, wow, okay, so didn't do that so well, but we'll know for next time?
It's a difficult question because there's two parts. Post-culturally, you can be at risk of becoming too ambitious, and that's probably where, you know, that is business critical. And I think any entrepreneur or great leader can become too ambitious, and sometimes you have to take a step back. I think personally for me, you know, bringing on quite a large group of homes, well, two large groups of homes in succession was quite challenging. And on reflection, I could have allowed it to be a little bit too ambitious, and it could have had some detrimental impact. It didn't, but it was a very, very challenging time for me and for the company. We got through it, and we got some great leaders on board. But my personal feeling is that don't be over ambitious. I think in terms of leadership, recruiting the wrong person at senior level is can be quite critical to the business, and that certainly did happen. Thankfully, the opportunity came for me to move fairly quickly on that, but I had quite a lot of fixing to do.
Sure.
I was just really pleased that it didn't go on over a longer period of time, because it could have had it could have been really influential.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting, isn't it? I've heard a few people say over the years, it's not the person that you don't fire that, it's not the person that you hire that's often the problem, it's the person that you don't fire, which sounds a little bit cutthroat. But if you've got somebody that's the wrong person and they're steering the ship in the wrong direction, as you said, you've got to make sure that decision's made quickly, and whatever the weather, you're going to end up having to do some fixing, doing some tidying up after them. And I guess if that person stays around, the longer they're going to be there, that influence is going to take longer to unpick the challenges and kind of build things back up to the way that they should be. So, yeah,
you're absolutely right, Simon, and you know that's why for me, keeping the Avery culture, the Avery family culture, is critical, because we operate in such an open and transparent way, where I would say the majority of our staff would feel very, very comfortable speaking to me, speaking to John, speaking to Ian. We don't, they don't think, oh my God, I wouldn't dare pick up the phone to them. And I think because of that openness and transparency, at whatever level you're recruiting, that might not be the wrong person, people will allow that person to have the opportunity, but because they're very aware of the Avery culture, they will also be very open and transparent in telling you when they are concerned that the ship is going the wrong way or starting to go the wrong way. And that then gives us the opportunity to take a closer look at why.
I can imagine that kind of sits within that leadership facilitated, team driven, because they're able to come back to you with kind of good objective insights into kind of what's going on a day by day basis, which is of course so valuable. So obviously we're living in crazy times. We're in the second wave of COVID at the moment. What's it been like leading your team during COVID, and how has COVID impacted the Avery culture?
Another very, very interesting question, and one that made me really reflect over the last sort of 10 months on it. It made me sort of stop and think about, what have we actually done? What, has it ultimately impact on the culture? I think there was a very big risk of that, and I think from the offset that was recognised by the whole team. So we looked at several ways in retaining that culture, and one of the first things we did was look at how we can support the homes by not still driving initiatives that weren't important, and that straight away gave managers the confidence to know that their time would be able to be focused on making sure that we manage the pandemic in the way that we have. It's been extremely challenging. We've all worked very tirelessly, and the whole of the care sector, everybody out there on the front line has had to work tirelessly to be able to manage the pandemic and infection spreading. But in all honesty, I am truly inspired by the way the teams across the whole group have come together. And I believe in some parts it's made people stronger. The resilience amongst the leaders within the group has been phenomenal. They have been so resilient. For the team, the senior team, the key message has been support, take some work off, the front line, make sure that we're recognising communication, open communication consistently. The way, I can't tell you, along with other providers, the amount of protocols that we've had to develop, and I mean daily, just to support the homes and to, follow government guidance. But I think we've never before been in this position. We set up very early on, almost at the beginning of the pandemic, we set up an emotional helpline, which is bespoke to Avery, so it's people within the organisation that actually take them calls, and then we have a dotted line to some counsellors. But that emotional support helpline has been critical, where people have just wanted to speak to somebody in Avery that's able to talk them through what others are doing and how people in that particular area are supporting each other. We've been open and transparent with continuous communication, and forgetting some of the strategic planning and the initiatives, and retaining that family culture throughout by engaging and supporting, has made us all reflect the importance of working together and what the benefits that has continued to bring, not only to the relatives, but to the residents, but to the relatives as well. I mean, it's been such an anxious time for all of our residents and relatives, and because the team is strong and keeping that family bond together, we've had amazing, and I'm sure everybody else in the sector has, amazing compliments and accolades on how well people have done.
Yeah, as we talk now, obviously the vaccine is beginning to be rolled out. Let's hope that it's a slightly less bumpy ride than the testing has been. Is it going to be the only thing that's going to make all the difference? No, of course it's not. But hopefully it will make a substantial enough difference that as we go into 2021, that we can regain some level of normality. That I think there's some things around the way that we've worked as a sector and just as people as a whole, that actually, you know what, we can park them, we can leave them in 2020, because I think we've come a long way during COVID. But there's a lot of things, especially around kind of visitation and things like that as well, which it would be great to see that getting back to some level of normality, just from a loneliness and isolation perspective as well.
In
Not to mention,
technology, Simon, technology has just come to
oh,
the forefront of everything, hasn't it?
yeah, without a shadow of a doubt.
And we've invested really quite heavily in technology within the care homes, obviously to support engaging relatives and residents together. But if we hadn't have had that, seriously, it would be just awful for them. But you know, the great big iPads, all of the Skypes, and it's been phenomenal. The pods, you know, it's great the way that technology has supported the pandemic, and I'm sure that that's just going to continue.
Absolutely, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. Last question to wrap things up. So if an aspiring care leader, whether they came from Avery or not, came to you looking for advice on leadership and how to build a great culture, what would be the key messages that you'd like to impart to that person?
Ooh, right. So for me, I think it's got to be around self-awareness of what your own development needs are. You know, and making sure that you've got your own, the passion to drive yourself as well as drive others has to be key. I think that you've got to have some thoughts around how you can be innovative and how you can involve others and get others, you know, engaged in what your innovation thoughts are and how you want to deliver that. I think you've definitely got to have a cross-culture environment where you've got cross-culture communication with your teams. You've got to be able to motivate, really key. You've got to be able to motivate so people want to come into work and, you know, they enjoy working with you. And through that, you've got to engage. Invest in your teams, recognise your leaders, because you'll never be a great leader yourself if you don't do that and you're not able to delegate and develop those potential leaders that are coming through their own career. And recognise your team's achievements, celebrate, but most importantly, recognise your own as well. People often recognise everybody else's achievement, but not their own. And you've got to be able to do that to continue to be able to lead.
I think the one thing that really resonates with me there is the knowing oneself, just to be self-aware. I think it's a human superpower. The more you know yourself, the better you can interact with the outside world, the better you can kind of connect with the right people, and the more people that you've got that are kind of aligned with you and your own kind of personal mission and things, whether that be in your personal life or in your professional life and things. People can move mountains. It takes a group of people to achieve something particularly special a lot of the time, and it can be truer in the social care world. So I think that's absolutely fantastic advice. So Sharon Winfield, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this week. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Simon. Take care.